Hi everyone. I thought I would film this video for two reasons. Number one, I've been watching Emma over at Drinking by My Shelf. I love her channel, and recently she's done some 24-hour reading vlogs where she has been reading books either on her own or with her sister, and for nostalgia reasons. So she read all of the Lemony Snicket books in 24 hours, and the other weekend she read all of the Princess Diary books in 24 hours. That video with her sister was wonderful. I will link it in the description box down below. Then I saw a tweet on Twitter, and I probably won't be quoting this exactly, but let me try and remember what it said. It said, "Quarantine diary, day one. I have bought enough dried food, etc. to last me for months, maybe even years, until this pandemic is over. Day one plus 45 minutes. I'm in the supermarket because I wanted a Twix." And that really made me think of the Georgia Nicholson books by Louise Renison, which I adored when I was a teenager. It's the kind of thing that Georgia would put in her diary. And I have been enjoying watching reading vlogs so much recently. Everything is really shit right now, so I wanted to read something that would lift my spirits, and I wanted to make a vlog for you that would hopefully provide some distraction. So this weekend, I would like to read all 10 of the Georgia Nicholson books. Here they are. Did you read them when you were younger? The first one is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging. It's about, I think she's 14-year-old Georgia and her group of friends and her ridiculous excursions into the world of love. I actually made a video about Louise Renison a few years ago because she passed away a few years ago, very young actually. So I made a video just declaring my love for her. Her books meant so much to me. For years I spoke in Georgia language. I added osity to the end of everything. I would speak in terrible French with my friends, deliberately bad, pronouncing the words as if they were English. And I'm sure it was infuriating for anybody who happened to listen. So that is my plan for the weekend, is to read as many of these 10 books as possible, to do some cooking and to talk to you. I'm sure that people will ask in the comment section down below. So just to let you know, at the moment I am social distancing. I have family members who can't do that because they are medics and because they are teachers. And I feel as a responsibility, not just to myself and the people around me, but to others out there, to be at home as much as possible because I can, to help slow the curve and all of that. So this week I have mostly been home, apart from on Wednesday when I was helping stock up at the food shelter because they are low on food. I will link the Trussell Trust down below if you would like to donate to them, if you can do that. As you know, my work is freelance, so a lot of my work is going into schools and universities, chairing events at book festivals and all of that stuff. A lot of my work has been cancelled for the coming months, understandably. I completely agree with this cancellation, but it does mean that I am now not getting paid for that work. I am focusing on freelance writing, but I also want to make more videos on this channel as well, both to help myself and, as I said, hopefully to help you if you're looking for a distraction. So I would love to know in the comment section down below what videos you would like me to make. If you have any requests, I'm working on a Red Riding Hood Fairy Tales with Jen episode, and I also have other videos in the pipeline as well, but I would love to hear from you. And if you had been considering supporting my YouTube channel on Patreon and throwing $1 in the tip jar, now would be an amazing time, but only if you are able to and want to, please. I know that so many of us are having to make difficult decisions at the moment. I'm just gonna link it down below. If you can, amazing. If you can't, please don't worry about it. So, yes, what I'm doing today, as I said, reading, but I'm also gonna go for a walk. I haven't, as I said, been anywhere this week apart from the food bank, but I would like to go stretch my legs, and I'm gonna go meet up with Jean as well in an open space. We can walk at a distance from each other and chat. So I will take you on that walk, and then we'll speak about books when I get back.
my like BBC TV show. Hi there. It's my book that I was just telling Jen about. I haven't actually read, so I don't really know that much about it. It sounds amazing. It's called The Empress of Salt and Fortune, and it's set in like a fantastical imperial China, and it says it's at once a feminist high fantasy and an indictment of monarchy. And here, like political fantasy, my fave. And it might have a female-female relationship. It's not very clear from the back. That might just be wishful thinking.
Okay, so Jean and I went for a walk, a good 20,000 steps, so I feel like I can sit down for the rest of the day. And I've just finished the first book. I'm not sure I'm going to make it through all of them this weekend. We shall see. I definitely laughed like a loon, as Georgia would say. However, there are some things in this that have not aged well. It's difficult because Georgia is 14 in this. She's 14, nearly 15. She's not supposed to be a perfect person. It's okay to have flawed characters. But I think that the problem is, and I was talking about this with Jean, is that there's nothing to counteract what she says. No one really challenges her opinions. And I suppose the reason for that is mostly she doesn't say them. She writes them in her diary and no one else is reading her diary. So no one's gonna write back and go, Georgia, you can't think these things. So I forgive some of that because as a society, and I think as a 14-year-old girl, you are taught to judge other people and to pit yourself against other people. It's not right, but that's definitely how a lot of 14-year-olds feel. There's that scene where she's with her friends and they're all rating each other's body parts on a scale of 1 to 10, and she's giving people higher marks than she thinks they deserve because they're her friend, but people don't do that back to her, and then she's like, well, what's the point in having friends if they're not even going to lie for you? One of my favourite lines is about Jazz, who's Georgia's best friend. She says, I've been ignoring Jazz. It's tiring, but someone has to do it. This spoke to me. I felt seen. At the weekend, a mum wears these awful dungarees that only lesbians or people on Blue Peter in the 60s wear. Hi. We can talk more about how queerness is talked about in these books or not talked about in these books, but there are 9 more to get through, so let's move on to the next one.
As I pointed out to Herr Kammeyer, there are too many letters in German words. The German types say Grüß Gott in the morning. How normal is that? In fact, how can you take a language like that seriously? Well, you can't. Which is why I only got 60% in my last German exam. She said, we thought we might go to the pencil making factory this afternoon. I didn't even bother saying anything to that. It'll be a laugh. No, it won't. When did we last have a laugh as a family? Apart from when Grandad's false teeth went down that woman's bra.
Good morning, it is Sunday. I realised that in the past 2 reading vlogs, when I've cooked, I've made spaghetti bolognese, and last night I made lasagna, which requires the making of the bolognese sauce as well. I promise that I make other things. It's just, that's the way that turned out. If you want the recipe for the vegetarian, well actually vegan, bolognese sauce, then I will link a vlog down below where I mentioned it. I got up to the end of book 4 last night, which is much further than I thought I would get, having only got to the end of book 1 by about 3 o'clock or something. But yeah, I got to the end of book 4 and I didn't stay up too late doing that. I listened to some of the audiobook while I was cooking. I'd forgotten that I still had those audiobooks. I knew I had them somewhere, but they weren't on my phone. Now, I must have bought them through iTunes a very, very long time ago. And happily, when I discovered that I still had those audiobooks, I discovered I still have a lot of Anne Fine audiobooks I bought as well, and Jacqueline Wilson audiobooks. So maybe if I'm still feeling nostalgic after that, I can go back and listen to those. I think I'm enjoying listening to them more than I am reading. I still think that she is coming out with things that are just, I think they always made me cringe. Maybe it's because at school I knew people who said things like that, who weren't very nice about, in passing. I'm not saying she's actively going out and bullying people. I just mean she makes very cutting, not very nice passing comments about people with acne, for instance. And at school, I knew lots of people like that. So it felt, whilst it didn't feel okay, it felt it was quite normal. And now, as a grown-up, a 33-year-old lady, which I would sing if I was Jenna Marbles, I just don't have people like that in my life anymore. I think also because it's a book for a younger audience, it needs to be made clearer that those things are not okay. Anyway, we can talk about this more later. I need to get dressed because I'm going to go for a walk. Mr. M is working today from home, but he's working. And I'm going to go for a long walk, and again I'm going to meet up with somebody in an open space and chat from a few feet away. So I'm going to meet up with Lena and Craig, and we're going to go for a walk, and that'll be really lovely. And if you don't follow their channels, I will link them in the description box down below. Let's go. Okay, so I'm back from my walk and have been reading. I think that my favourite book is maybe the third book, which is, oh no, which is the third one? Because I've put them all in the wrong order. I think the third one is Knocked Up by My Nunga-Nungas, and I think that I really love this one because it's when Georgia and her family go to Scotland. The parts that I love about these books are the parts with her family, and I think that she does manage to broach some serious topics. She's worried that her mum is going to have an affair at one point, several points actually, several points, and her sister is hilarious. I think there's definitely much more of a complex relationship dynamic between those characters, whereas I'm feeling with her friends nothing really evolves. I love these books, but they do sometimes feel as though George is on a loop, and things get repeated unnecessarily, so the same types of things will happen again and again, and she doesn't really learn from them, which is strange as a reader. And the hilarious thing about this is that actually I think probably she's in year 9 or year 10 about 3 times, because she doesn't seem to get any older, but the diary keeps going. I haven't done the maths on it, but I'm sure she must have been in one year at least twice. I think some of my favourite bits also when she's talking to Jazz on the phone. So this is from Dancing in My Nudie Pants. It says, rang Jazz. Jazz, quoi? What are you doing? Blodge homework. Moi aussi. Are you drawing a hydra? Oh oui. Have you drawn its wafting tentacles yet? No. I have. Also, I have drawn in some cheesy whatsits being wafted in by its tentacles. Hydras don't eat cheesy whatsits. They are pond life. That's a bit rude, Jazz. It isn't. It's a biological fact. Okay, Jazz, but have you considered this? Perhaps hydras don't eat cheesy whatsits because no one had the good manners to go down to the pond and offer them around. Don't hydras deserve to be treated like human beings? And also, so there are bits of this that are so funny, and there are some bits that are just really not funny, but the bits that are funny, bloody hilarious. They go to France on a school trip, and in the restaurant there is a notice that says soup du jour. So Rosie said to the French waiter, can I have le soup de yesterday please? But no one got it. And there's also a bit, I think, where she says, Georgia says to the waiter, do you have frog's legs? And he says yes. And she says, well, hop off and get me a salad then, which really, really does make me laugh. Also, the sex god was ahead of his time. He was very much into climate change and saving the world, and Georgia thought he was too serious, which was definitely a mistake. I'm definitely liking Robbie more in these books than I liked him when I think I read them the first time. I think I am still in the Dave the Laugh camp. So there were 3 boys that Georgia was interested in: Robbie, Dave the Laugh, and Massimo. Who cares about Massimo, quite literally? I mean, nobody. Dave the Laugh was definitely my favourite, but I am warming to Robbie. As you may be able to tell by the light, it is much later now and I have finished reading all 10 books, which I didn't think I would be able to do. I have thoughts. I have conflicting thoughts. I loved rereading the first 5 books in the series. Some parts are absolutely hilarious. Some parts that, small parts, but definitely very much their parts that I found uncomfortable and jarring when I was reading them as a teenager. That's even more the case now. There is definitely fat phobia in here. She is just not very nice about people who look different, and she makes jokes at the expense of gay people. Well, she's not joking about gay people, but she used gayness as a joke, and as a queer teenager, as a queer person, that was always just... I experienced that at school. I didn't need to also experience it in the book that I was reading. And even though that's reflective of what people are like at school, as I said, there's not much context for why those things are not okay. So it's a weird thing to give voice to and give power to. As I said, the books do sometimes handle serious topics. And in this one, and that's when it fell off of my hand, there's a character called Mark who was in earlier books who comes back and who yells at Georgia because she won't do the things that he would like her to do. There's no sexual assault in this book, but it is very aggressive. Like, he shouts at her because he says, well, why did you come and meet me if you don't want to have sex with me? And Georgia internalizes that, and that is definitely looked at from different points of view. So her friend Rosie says, well, you were worth more than that, and that entirely wasn't your fault. And Dave the Laugh also helps her. And then we have Jazz, who says she must have done something to provoke that response, and maybe she was wearing something that she shouldn't have been wearing. And whilst I find it realistic to have those different responses from people, again, I don't think enough is done to highlight that Jazz's response is not that appropriate. I don't want books to be preachy. I just think that if you're handling topics like that and you're writing for younger age groups, you kind of have a responsibility to, well, to lead the way, and I don't think that she always does that. But to end on a happy note, I think my favourite scene ever in these books is in this book here, which is And That's When It Fell Off in My Hand. And Georgia goes to a club and she's trying to impress Massimo, and she's wearing fake eyelashes and she's doing the sticky eye thing that she's read about in Cosmos. So she looks down and then looks up again at the person that she likes, in this case Massimo. But when she does it with him, her eyelashes get stuck together, and instead of just saying, oh, my eyelashes got stuck together, she pretends that nothing's happened, and she goes, oh, I must groove to this one, and she pretends to be dancing to the song that's on, which is actually a song by Rolf Harris. And she just staggers off, not being able to see, until she finds Rosie and grabs her shoulders and says, Rosie, my eyelashes, or boy entrances as she calls them, are stuck together. Help me. And Rosie says, quick, grab my shoulders, we'll conga to the bathroom, to the piddly diddly department, if you will. So Georgia grabs Rosie's shoulders and they do the conga. But then, of course, everyone in the club starts doing the conga with them. So she's trapped on this conga line for ages, not being able to see. Is very silly and funny. So yeah, I would recommend revisiting these, the first half of the series. And the audiobooks are great because they're narrated by Louise Renison herself. I would love to know if you read these when you were younger, if you have reread them recently or would like to. What books did you love when you were younger? And also tell me what videos you would like to see coming up in the next weeks and months. As I mentioned earlier, if you can support me on Patreon, I would massively appreciate it. But if you can't, please don't worry. I will be back with another video very, very soon. I love you all very much. I hope that you are staying as safe and well as you can do. And yeah, I'll be back soon. Lots of love.